and I broke 2 screwdrivers. And will this thing start tomorrow? I don't know. Here I have a 2011 BMW X5 3.0 twin turbo. This car here belongs to a friend of mine. He got it off an auction thinking it'd be an easy fix, but it said mechanical damage. We're thinking something minor because it only has 80,000 miles, but turns out this engine is locked up. This is the 3.0 twin turbo gasoline engine, and it's seized up. It turns over by hand, but it's very, very tight. So from doing some research, I believe that the crankshaft bearings, I believe they're called, they're probably worn, or they spun because of lack of lubricant or low oil, or it overheated at some point or something like that. Not sure what causes these problems. I don't know these cars as much as I do Fords. If this was a Ford, I would probably fix it quicker, but this will be a learning process. And my goal today is to lift up the car and go from underneath and see if I can somehow remove the oil pan while the engine is still in the vehicle. I know the subframe's in the way, and this is an all-wheel drive vehicle, so there's going to be axles. The front axles are going to be in the way and things like that. So I'm curious to see how much work this is actually going to be, just to remove the oil pan while the engine is still in the car. Reason why I don't want to remove the engine is because there's a lot more work to remove the engine than to actually drop the subframe and try to do it that way. So let's lift the car up and see what we got underneath. It would not be a BMW without all this shielding underneath. So first step, I'm gonna remove all these shields just so I can get a better idea of what actually needs to come off, and then we'll go from there. But I do see that there are axles going into the oil pan or through it or something like that. It's dark, but we'll get to see it better once I remove the shields. So after about an hour, the subframe is off the car. I've got the engine dangling on some straps up here. Seems like it worked. The engine did drop a little bit. Got my hands dirty. So let's get the subframe out of the way and take a look and see what we need to do next. I still haven't pulled the axles, but I think that's gonna have to be next. I just really don't want to take apart the whole hub assembly. I want to see if I can pull the hub back far enough to where I can pull the axles out, and that'll make life easier. If not, it is what it is. I'm just glad the subframe is out and out of the way. So day two, well, day two, but it's not like I work on it full time. I've spent at least 3 hours on it so far, and right now the engine is just held by some straps, one on each side. Sketchy, but it works. And you know, it's just dangling because the subframe's right there, so there's nothing holding it from underneath. Sketchy, yeah, but I don't have we typically don't do this stuff here, so I don't have the proper equipment to hold the engine in place, but this works just fine. So what I'm gonna do right now is want to remove the fan. So I'm going to remove the strut bar here, or whatever it's called, and take the fan off because I want to have access to the main crank pulley, because I'm going to have to rotate the engine at some point, and it's just going to be much easier because on the BMW everything is just so tight. Everything is, you know, all in one place. So let's get this removed, and then we're gonna go up with the car and finally remove the oil pan and see what it looks like. So I got the oil pan off and I started taking some of these off, and number 6 was decent, like the bearing's still in there, you can see, and it looks okay. And this one, the bearing stayed on the crank, so I guess this is called a spun bearing. Again, this is my first time taking an engine apart, so I'm not sure what the proper terms are, but I know that that doesn't look good. The bearing spun and I guess seized up. So this is number 5. Let's continue and see what the other ones look like. You got some new bearings from the local dealer. I didn't know this, but they actually sell it piece by piece. I thought you'd have to buy the whole set, but actually you can buy an upper and a lower, and you can buy like one set or all 6. I just need one. The rest of them are good on this engine, so I'm gonna leave those alone, but I'm gonna replace this number 5 bearings. What I did was I polished it up a little bit so it's looking fresh. I have all of them connected except number 5 and 6, and so I'm gonna pop the new bearings in and go from there. So at this point I have all the rod bearings back in place. The number 5 is the new one, and I've got them torqued down to 62 foot-pounds. I think there's a different torque spec, but from my research I saw that the first round you do 50 foot-pounds, and then the second round you do about 62 foot-pounds. So that's what I did, and right now it's reassembly time, and then I'm gonna let it dry overnight, the RTV, and tomorrow we're gonna try to start it and see what happens. I turned the engine over about 4 to 5 times by hand, and it seems like it's turning freely, so I think it should be okay. I mean, there wasn't any crazy damage on the crankshaft, but who knows? I've never done this before. This is my first one, so we'll see how it goes. We got the gasket in place. Yes, I am reusing the old gasket because it was still decent and the new one never came in. So what I did was I put a little bit of RTV around it just to hold it in place. And it would be nice to put the new gasket on, but like I said, it never made it and I don't have time to wait for it, so this will do it. I've got RTV on that side of the gasket, and I'm also gonna put RTV on the oil pan, so it should be good. I went ahead and pressure washed the whole oil pan inside out just to make it look better, and working on clean parts is so much better and easier. One thing I do regret is when I removed the oil pan, I didn't take a piece of cardboard and draw out like a outline and put the bolts in the proper places. So I mean, it's just gonna take a little bit longer to figure out which bolt goes where, but there's only, it looks like 1, 2, 3, 4 different sizes, so I'll start with the little ones first and then just go from there. But I've got a little bit of RTV on the oil pan as well, so I'm ready to install it, so let's get it. Alright, so the oil pan is back on this front diff or whatever it's called. The diff looks like it's back there, or the transfer case is back there, but then there's a drive shaft that goes to here, and then each axle goes on each side, whatever. But everything looks like it's in place. The steering rack is just tied up right now because it goes above the subframe, this cooler goes above the subframe, so I think it's time to put the subframe on. And I pressure washed it also outside earlier, and this thing looks brand new. So let's get this thing on the forklift and lift it up and put it back in place. Got all the suspension components back on the vehicle. Everything is bolted down and torqued. Everything looks good underneath. I am leaving the shield off for now because I want a couple of reasons. I want to wash it first of all, and it's already like 10 p.m. so it's dark outside, and I want to see if there's any leaks once, or if it even runs. Keep in mind that this is not like a how-to video, but more of to show you what fails on the N55 engine on the BMW X5. This is a 2011 X5, and this is the 3.0 turbo engine. So it's the N55 engine. This vehicle here only has about 80,000 miles on it, and as you could see in the beginning of the video, when I took the engine apart from underneath, when I took the oil pan off, this was the number 5 rod bearing, and I broke 2 screwdrivers and had to chisel this thing off. Luckily, my crankshaft was not damaged. Well, at least I don't think it had too much damage. Most of it was this material left on there, so I just took some sandpaper. Started with the 400 grit, then 600, then 1000, then 1500, and then finished it off with 2000 grit while I put oil on it just for lubrication. So this is my first time doing it. I know people do this and get away with it. When I installed the new bearings, this is the part numbers, by the way, for the upper and the lower bearing. You could buy these at the dealership. That's where we went. They're like 30 bucks a piece, but I think it's worth it because I do believe they come a little bit thicker than the original, so that actually helped me out. So tomorrow, right now it's 10 p.m. and I don't want to put oil in it because I want the silicone to dry on the gasket. It's probably already dry, but I don't want to continue. I'm just gonna put the wheels on, lower the car down, and then tomorrow morning put the oil in and see if it cranks over. The first few cranks, I'm gonna pull the plugs out and just freely crank the engine, build up the oil pressure, and then put the plugs back in and start it. Will this thing start tomorrow? I don't know. Pretty nervous about it. Hopefully it starts, but I guess we'll find out tomorrow. Let's put these wheels on and call it a day. So the car is now on its feet once again. Everything underneath is complete besides the shield, because as you can see there was a slight oil leak, and that's probably one of the issues. Is there was an oil leak, and these things don't come with a dipstick, so whenever it tells you on the dash that your oil is low, it's probably too late, and so the engine starves on oil, and bearings spin, they starve, and that's why it fails. I don't really blame BMW for this. Maybe a little bit, because I think the oil changes every 15,000 miles on these. I definitely wouldn't stretch it that much. I probably would do it every 5 to 7 at the most, because engines do burn a little bit of oil, especially when it's older, and there's no dipstick. So I guess you can check it on the dash, but can you really trust it? I feel like having a dipstick would be awesome. Maybe one of these days someone will think of a way to have a dipstick or something on these. But you know, that being said, one more thing I have to do today is put the belt back on, and I'm gonna leave the fan out for right now. And I got a new filter and some fresh oil. By the way, the straps that I did actually held the engine flawlessly for like a week, because the car was on a lift for a while because we didn't have the bearings, and then I was out of town. But that's irrelevant. So I'm going to cut these off because the motor is sitting on the mounts. I do have to tighten this mount down here. I have the nut on the driver's side, and that should be it. I do like how these cars look, and especially this one with these nice wheels. But if the engine fails at 80,000 miles, then no thank you. But you know, it does look good, and fingers crossed it will start tomorrow. I think it will. Right now the engine turns freely by hand, so I think it should start no problem. But still, fingers crossed that it starts and runs for a while, and stays off the lift. But we'll see how it does. So we'll continue this tomorrow. All right, put 6.9 quarts in here of Mobil 1 040, and got the spark plugs out. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna crank the engine to 3 to 5 times, build up oil pressure, and then put the plugs back in and start it. Let's see what this does. I'm scared. One more time, huh?
Yeah, whatever. I mean,
I don't want to get the starter hot. Should I prime it sometimes again, or what? Or it's prime?
whatever. I mean,
Start it?
oh yeah.
Is that cool that I did it? Yeah, right? First start.
Shut it.
Oh, keep going. This is crazy. She's alive. I can't believe it's running. No way. And it sounds good too. Dude, it sounds good. I think it sounds good, right?
Oh yeah.
Man, I can't believe it runs.
This is gold.
Pretty sure I'm like certified now on something. I guess we're done with it, man. To wrap this video up, it runs flawless and it's not knocking or anything. There's no codes. I checked the codes, the temperature is all good, and it's running awesome. So is it gonna run long? Who knows? No one knows, but it's running right now, and after 2 hours of idle or so, we're gonna try to drive it down the road and probably fill it up with some gas. But that is it for this video. Later.